Happy Palm Sunday, everybody. Yes, today's Palm Sunday. I was really saddened to see empty Vatican with Pontifex Maximus, St. Francis. But still, we celebrate the joy of Jesus Christ coming on a donkey. And so I want to wish you happy Palm Sunday. My name is Heerak Christian Kim. I'm an independent candidate for U.S. Congress in Virginia's 8th district that includes Arlington, Alexandria, Falls Church, and parts of Fairfax County. I've started this program, Coronavirus Update, for all of you so that you can become more informed about what you are facing. And also, it will help you to survive this. And so I'm hoping that this will help you and your family. And I'm going to give you a update from yesterday. So this is another episode of daily updates. From yesterday, Saturday, to today, Sunday, there had been 1,207 Americans who died from coronavirus. That's a 15% rise on death rate from yesterday. So we see that yesterday we had 8,407 people who were dead from coronavirus in the United States. Today, the total stands at 9,634. It's been fairly steady in terms of how many cases are increasing, around 30,000. And so yesterday there were 308,850 cases, and today it's 337,310 people who have coronavirus. So the death rate stands at around 3%. So 3% of those who have coronavirus are dying, since 337,310 people have it, and 9,634 people died. Today, I wanted to compare our country with other countries, but with other countries that are doing fairly well. And I thought looking at Scandinavia would be helpful for you. And some of you have visited Denmark, Norway, Sweden, which are Scandinavian countries. Some of you have not. So you may not really know these countries, but these are the countries where the Vikings come from. And many of you are fans of Viking. And these Vikings went to England long time ago. And some say United States was visited by Vikings. Leif Erikson, long time ago. And so let's see how the Vikings are doing during coronavirus pandemic. Denmark has 4,561 cases, and the death stands at 179. Now look at the next one. Norway, there are 5,687 cases. Death is at 71. So it's significantly lower. And that may be because Norway is kind of spread out. It would be kind of interesting to compare these three countries to see why things are the way they are. Sweden is the biggest country out of the three, from what I understand. And their cases are at 6,830, and their death is at 401. And so it'll be kind of interesting to kind of keep monitoring them. And some of the states in the United States can compare states that have about 4,000 cases. You can compare how many deaths you have in your state, and compare it to Denmark, which has 179. Because 50 states in the United States are kind of like countries on their own, and governors function as leaders or almost mini presidents of their states, right? So uh, it may not be bad idea to look at each state as a country for the purpose of trying to understand COVID-19, because governors have a lot of control over what they do in their state. And so maybe that should be the strategy going forward, not to look at all of America, but kind of look at 50 mini countries and see how they're dealing with coronavirus and which state is doing better and why. We need to find out social strategies to helping people. So comparing all 50 states to each other may be a good idea. So it's not a bad idea to give each governor uh, more power to deal with coronavirus in the way he or she sees fit in their state, because maybe one state may provide a solution for survival, especially if this thing lasts more than 18 months, as Spanish flu did, um, rather than if we just have like a blanket policy for all 50 states, then we won't know or be able to figure out what's the best strategy to survive. So I recommend that federal government kind of pull back a little bit and let each state govern their own state. And then if this thing lasts more than 18 months, then at the 6-month period, we can see which governor strategies worked, which governor strategies did not work. Obviously, right now, New York and New Jersey with high death seem to indicate that governors are not being efficient, right? Why else is it spreading so fast? So we got to look at different factors. What are the factors causing so many deaths and so many people getting COVID-19 in New York and New Jersey? And compare that with states where there aren't too many cases. And we can compare apples to apples, right? Because New York is a big city, but Chicago is also a big city. So we can compare cities to cities and see why some cities have big spread and other cities don't. And then that may provide us a picture into how we can solve this problem, or at least reduce the death rate. If it lasts over 18 months, you want to focus on trying to reduce the cases and death. So having 50 states doing their own thing may be a good strategy, because many experts are saying that this is going to go a long time. Today, Dr. Fauci said we're going to have a second wave. So there are people who think that COVID-19 will go in waves. So it's kind of like the flu, it will start in the fall and then kind of die down in the summer. Others believe that it's a continuous thing, like it doesn't stop, just keeps continuing. And I actually agree with them more. So I kind of disagree with Dr. Fauci, just because COVID-19 is spreading in Australia, Indonesia, amazingly a lot. And these are hot zones, and especially Australia and New Zealand, their winter is our summer is their winter. So it doesn't seem like it's a seasonal thing, but I could be wrong. But my guess is that it's going to be continuous, and there are other viruses that are that way. And COVID-19 may not mimic the flu. So we just have to be careful, because we don't really know much about COVID-19. So right now, experts are guessing, and it'll probably take over 10 years to figure out what COVID-19 actually is. People don't really know yet. And also, it's evolving and adapting, so we don't know what's going to happen. I mean, it can evolve in the next 18 months or so. So we need to strategize from the vantage point that we are in it for the long haul. And that's why I support separating 50 states and letting 50 states do their own thing. And then the federal government just acts in more of a support role. And President Trump has been pretty good, and he's kind of supporting the states. So I would say continue that. Do not try to legislate and force 50 states to do X, Y, and Z. I think that would be a bad strategy to go. Now, we see today a disturbing news, and this is a breaking news. Today, British Prime Minister Boris Johnson is hospitalized. He said that he had symptoms for 10 days, and now he feels he needs to be hospitalized. So he went into a hospital, and there's a chance that he may become intubated or become ventilated. And there are several reasons why this is disturbing. He had symptoms for 10 days. That's not a good sign for several reasons. If you are showing symptoms for 10 days, it's possible that the virus is spreading throughout your body, especially if your condition is getting worse, in which case you're kind of headed toward death. And another problem is this. Your body systems, there are different organs in your body, can start to be compromised because of the symptoms. And other kinds of illnesses can develop from COVID-19. And these symptoms can kill you as well. So we'll go on to discuss how COVID-19 can cause death for someone who has it. Now, some of you may be wondering what that photograph, black and white photograph is. That photograph is from about 100 years ago when the world had a pandemic, Spanish flu pandemic. We know that killed hundreds of millions of people around the world, and COVID-19 may be the same, or it may kill more people. We're hoping they will kill less people, obviously, and that it will end soon. But we just don't know. And Spanish flu went on far longer than 18 months. So we just don't know what's going to happen. Now, those things inside the black and white photo, they are ventilators. They're called iron lungs. Basically, you put the person inside and help them breathe through that. And you see they're lined up like that. One positive thing is the infection has less chance of spreading because you lock the people inside an iron lung, and they may have better chance of surviving than today's situation where each patient is kind of in an open space, so other kinds of infections can go into the patient because the patient is intubated with a tube, but there are openings in the patient where bacteria or viruses can enter, and there's a lot of different kinds of bacteria. As I've shared, I'm a second-year Master of Science nursing student at Georgetown University, so I work in a hospital setting, and so I learn a lot about infections. There are bacteria that evolve or adapt, and in England they call it superbug, because bacteria is a living organism that wants to survive. And so when a patient starts taking antibiotics to combat a bacteria is trying to find a way to survive against the antibiotic that the patient is receiving. So now we have these things called superbug in every hospital in America and in the United Kingdom, all over the world, which is an evolutionary development of bacteria adapting in order to survive, which are resistant to antibiotics. And so you have these antibiotic resistant bacteria, and the way that hospitals try to treat them is try to find another type of antibiotics that will kill the bacteria that may be resistant to penicillin, for example. So viruses and bacteria, they adapt to survive. Um, and so they're living organisms. They're not fixed, right? They're always evolving, kind of like you. Your personality may evolve. You may become taller. You may become fatter, right? You're evolving, and bacteria evolves as well. If you exercise, you may become thinner. So bacteria wants to live as well. I mean, you exercise because you want to live longer. Bacteria wants to survive as well because it's a living organism, and all living organisms in the world strive to survive and adapt to survive. And now, let's talk about this. Now, you are a COVID-19 patient, and British Prime Minister Boris Johnson is. Now, he's at the hospital. How many ways can he die? Aren't you curious? I mean, it's kind of morbid to talk about death, but I'm sure that more than a few of you are thinking, if I go to the hospital, what are the ways that I can die? And maybe no one has discussed this with you, and you're curious, and maybe you're afraid to ask this question. And that is why Heerak Christian Kim has created this program for you so that you can have answers to questions you're thinking about, but no one is brave enough to ask, or people are afraid to ask, but you may want to know. So I provide this program so you can get answers that you may not get from CNN, Fox News, CBS, New York Times, Washington Post. So you should subscribe to my YouTube channel so that you don't miss out on any important information, and watch this program religiously, because it's going to help you. Now, what are the ways you can die? Obviously, you can die from COVID-19 through respiratory failure. You can just stop breathing. And you see that that's the last bullet point there. And that's why they put a tube into you so that the machine will breathe for you. Now, you can also die from pneumonia, because if you're showing signs and symptoms, you're coughing for 10 days, it's possible that while you're coughing, in your weakened immune system, the bacteria from your own body can start infecting you. As I said, there are a lot of bacteria in your hand. When even after you wash it, there's going to be bacteria there. And let's say you touch your mouth with your hand, the bacteria will enter your system, or you cough or sneeze into your hand. You say, oh, oh, and then after oh, you're breathing back. So you're saying, oh, and then you may be breathing back bacteria from your own hand. This bacteria can enter your lungs or bronchi, the branches that go into the lungs from your airway, and it can infect you. And you can get a pneumonia from the bacteria and you die. Let me share an information with you. I recently recovered from influenza A. I had these flu-like symptoms, so I went in to see the doctor, and I had these tests for influenza A, influenza B, strep throat. I was told that I didn't have strep throat, I didn't have influenza B, but I had influenza A. Now I took the flu vaccine, so I don't know how I got influenza A, but I understand that flu vaccines are not foolproof, so you could still get flu from after having a vaccine. And nothing is foolproof in life. So I got influenza A, and it's a virus. So I asked, the person who diagnosed me, can you please give me antibiotics, because I know that when you have a flu, other bacteria can enter and you can get pneumonia and die. So some people may not die from the flu, but if they get pneumonia after several days for whatever reason, they could die from the pneumonia. But the person treating me refused to give me antibiotics. So I went home, and the person said it's a virus, so I'll just give you Tamiflu, which treats influenza A. So I took Tamiflu. 2 days after I went home, I was feeling horrible. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't, I mean, every time I ate something, I felt like throwing up. So I had to force myself to put things down. I had fever. I don't know if I had fever or not because I took Tylenol. She gave me lots of Tylenol, so I took that religiously. Although you gotta be careful not to take too much Tylenol because if you take more than 3,000 milligrams, your liver can be damaged and you will die because most medicines are metabolized in liver, meaning you need your liver for medicine to work. So if your liver doesn't function, you'll die from that. I have a friend who had cancer. He survived cancer, but he took too much Tylenol for his pain, and his liver failed, and he died from the liver failure. So don't take too much Tylenol. Yeah, make sure you take less than 3,000 milligrams, but you have to be on the safe side, so you should take probably much less than that. But anyway, going back to our topic, so I was feeling horrible, right? And I was thinking, should I call 911? Because I had a hard time breathing. I mean, I couldn't breathe, and that's when you just never call 911. Then I thought to myself, if I call 911, or if I drive myself to the hospital, there are going to be COVID-19 patients there. I don't have COVID-19. I have influenza A, which means I can still get COVID-19, which is a different virus. Can you imagine having influenza A and COVID-19 at the same time? That's like 100% guaranteed death. And so I said, no, I'm not going to go in. So it's a risk because you could still die at home from influenza A. Influenza A kills a lot of people. Influenza kills a lot of people every year, as President Trump has mentioned. But I said, well, maybe I should just ride it out a few more days and see. I'm taking Tamiflu and I'm taking my Tylenol. So let's see, how I am. The next day, I was still kind of miserable, but I was feeling a little bit better. So I kind of waited out, and then when I ran out of my Tamiflu, which is an antivirus medicine, which is supposed to help with flu, I was still feeling miserable, so I went in. And the doctor took my X-ray, and doctor said, you are infected with bacteria in your bronchus, which is like the branches that go down from bronchus tubes go into the lungs. So I had acute bacterial infection. So doctor gave me antibiotics for 10 days to treat the bacterial infection. Obviously, bacteria is different from virus. So I was infected with something else. Now, had this developed into pneumonia, I would have died. And a lot of people, that's how they die. They get influenza A. It becomes some kind of a bacterial infection, either in the bronchus or somewhere, bronchitis or whatever, and then it develops a pneumonia, and then you die. A lot of people die from flu every year, and so I wanted to tell the different person treating me, I told you so. I asked for antibacterial because I don't know when the bacteria is going to go into my system, but if I'm taking antibiotics, when it goes in, when a bacteria goes in, it's going to be killed right away by the antibiotics. But I don't know when the bacteria entered, but it looked pretty bad on the X-ray. I mean, there's little white dots all over the bronchus everywhere. I was like, oh my gosh, it kind of scared me a little bit. But anyway, so pneumonia can kill you, and it kills many people. Now, this is more scary for you people out there. You can die from ventilator-associated pneumonia, which means, let's say you go into the hospital and you can't breathe. Like how I was feeling on Sunday. I had trouble breathing, and they decide they're going to put a tube into you. And this tube can transmit bacteria because it's a tube that goes inside of you. So bacteria could go inside through the tube that's going inside. And yes, the ventilator is giving you oxygen. It's doing what it should, but that doesn't mean it's going to necessarily block out the bacteria. They'll be going inside, riding on the tube. So the bacteria goes inside, riding on the tube, and your lung can be infected with bacteria that is riding on the tube. And there are many different kinds of bacteria. So it's not just one kind that could infection give you ventilator-associated pneumonia. So you may want to Google ventilator-associated pneumonia to see what that is and how you get it, just to understand it better. I can't explain too much right now because there's a lot of information there as well. So just Google ventilator-associated pneumonia to understand. That's one way you can definitely die if you become intubated or use a ventilator. Another way you can die is through sepsis. You can get infection in all kinds of ways. Let's say you're a COVID-19 patient in the hospital and the nurse doesn't have enough PPE, so she's using the mask for her whole 12-hour shift. So with other patients who may not have what you have, she may have, let's say, MRSA, which is methicillin-resistant Staph aureus, which is a type of bacteria, and this is the bacteria that's a superbug resistant to methicillin, which is a type of antibiotic. And so that could be on the mask of the nurse. And when the nurse is taking care of you, you may not be on a ventilator, but you could be infected by that, and that infection will spread through the body and you will die from that infection. And obviously there are a lot of different kinds of bacteria. That danger is there when the nurse uses the same mask for 12 hours. There is actually a fairly high risk of that, because your immune system is compromised. So bacteria that would not normally infect you will, because generally you have an immune system that will fight off a lot of different kinds of infections, bacteria. Now, another way you could die is cardiac arrest. I saw in CNN that there are 4 COVID patients in a hospital. Their heart just stopped beating, and all 4 of them died because they couldn't be revived in their weakened state. And so heart stops when the electric current of your heart stops. So you may know people who have a pacemaker. You may have that too. So this electric current that goes through your body is giving you the beat. So when you go like this to your hand right here, part of your hand, like if you go like this and you can feel your heartbeat, right here. So you can feel your heartbeat, and that's the electric current of your heart kind of sending out electric current so your heart can beat. And so when the electric current doesn't go out, you die. That could happen with people with malfunctioning pacemakers. And so that could be caused by all kinds of factors. Now, another way you could die is kidney failure. When you get pneumonia and you have all these problems with fluid collecting in the lung, and you receive diuretics, which is a drug to kind of drain your body of the fluid. Sometimes too much fluid gets drained, and there isn't enough fluid in your body, and kidney needs fluids. So if it doesn't have enough fluid, generally, if you don't urinate that much, you don't have you don't have enough fluid. Your kidney can malfunction, and that could lead to shock, and that could lead to death. So it could start a cascade of problems that could lead to death. So there are many different ways you can die, at home and hospital. Obviously, if you're at home and you don't have ventilator, you will die if you stop breathing, right? Or you can't breathe. And so this is why COVID-19 is so scary, because there's so many ways to die. And this is just a few of the ways you can die. There are so many other ways you can die, especially if you have conditions like diabetes, or if you're overweight, if you are, if you have a heart condition, if you had a stroke, uh, whatever condition you may have, high blood pressure, based on your own condition, you have more or less ways you can die. And so, keep safe. Try not to get COVID-19. That's the best way, right? Not getting COVID-19 is the best way. Unfortunately, as you know, the Surgeon General said it's going to be like Pearl Harbor, 9/11 this week. So he may have some information we don't have, because FBI is gathering data all the time, and NSC. So he and President Trump may have information we don't have, because why would they say this week is going to be 9/11? I mean, there must be something going on, and that's why they're afraid of this week. So be particularly careful this week, but you got to be careful every day. I mean, this thing lasts 18 months. You got to be careful for 18 months. But psychologically prepare yourself, because a lot of people are going to die. Somebody most likely will die, maybe more than one person, if this thing lasts more than 18 months. So just brace yourself. So we're going into Holy Week this week. So read the Gospels, do your prayers. Supernatural help can only help, right? So anyway, this is Heerak Christian Kim, independent candidate for U.S. Congress in Virginia's 8th District, Arlington, Alexandria, Falls Church, parts of Fairfax County, running for general election to be U.S. Congressman. So don't forget to vote for me on November 3rd, 2020. And subscribe to my YouTube channel and be updated so that you can survive COVID-19. I'd like to wish you and your family well, and keep watching this program. Be well.